Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not To Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Batwoman. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up with both Poison Ivy OG and Poison Ivy Jr. as kind of Alice kind of puts it later on. The fact is that they're working together. Mary's going after a guy who turned down a lot of people's like insurance claims and stuff like that. People who need medical health care and stuff like that. And Mary wants to punish him. And I was wondering whether or not she actually killed him or not. It doesn't seem like she did, just because later on she's kind of shocked by the news about when she killed someone. But so like, yeah, she just wanted to punish him. I don't think she actually killed. Maybe I don't know. Roughed him up pretty much, but for her it's like she was able to finally have the power and position to actually make change for all those people who had to suffer and struggle their way through because of people like him. So, and now Mary feels good because like, right, I'm able to use this power for good, and I owe it all to you, Pam. And Pam's obviously siphoning off of her, and she's like, oh, are you okay? And it's like, part of me is like, does she genuinely actually care? Because she knows what the end result is. Like, if she keeps draining away, she will kill Mary. But I guess maybe as long as she waits, I guess as long as it's not a constant, like, oh, I'm taking, probably enough she build her strength back up, just like donating blood. Like, obviously, your body will eventually replace the blood that you've given away. So maybe that was Pam's potential perspective on things. Maybe she didn't have a perspective. Maybe she didn't think that far ahead. Maybe she cared. Maybe she didn't. Not fully sure where, because she only cared in the sense that she found a comrade in Mary, someone who was about getting justice like she was. Granted, not to the extent that she was, because it's like, right, going after one bad person is one thing, because yeah, at the core of it all, there is still, she's just a more amplified version of herself, but she still is kind of Mary. She's just like kind of without her filter to a certain extent. But the moment Pamela was like, no, I'm gonna finish what I started 10 years ago when Batman stopped me, the dam and everything, because we ended up finding out very tragic things about her. Like, because her brother had asthma, her mom went about trying to going through the plant situation, which I'm not well versed in all things Pamela Isley. I do know that she is a scientist, and I don't know if any of this plays true to her continuity. Comics have been around forever, so it's like, what is one continuity? There's been so many different continuities. Different writers have like taken up like these different stories and done different things. So maybe this is true to some version of Pamela. Maybe it's true to a lot of versions of her, or maybe it's just true to none of them, and that's just something that's specific to this one. But it's interesting to know like where her fight for the plant started. It's like, oh, because like plants were what kept her brother alive, but it was like the pollution and basically the water that from their home was polluted, and her brother didn't even make it to 13 years old. You're like, Jesus, that's rough. So no wonder she's the villain that she is. Like, she's, because my perspective has always been just like, right, she's obsessed with plants, but now this adds a layer to why, because she also talks about, she speaks for plants because they are the underdogs, and her brother was the underdog. Like, speak for those who didn't have power, because her mom worked, tooth and nail to take care of her brother, like trying to pay for like any medical stuff. So, and that's when she turned to the plant stuff as an alternative. But I just think it's interesting. It just adds an even deeper layer, at least to this version of Poison Ivy, to know like there's even I think there's already that deeper level of just kind of like, right, her character's always tends to lean towards eco-terrorism, but to find out there's an even deeper reason, like besides just her love for plants and just like, right, saving the planet in her own way. Because she even tried to tell Mary, like, right, they're going to paint you as a villain, they're going to say this and that, because no one's the villain of their story. Like, Pamela doesn't see herself as a villain. It's like, no, I'm the hero, and just people getting in my way and trying to stop me. Like, I have to do some bad for the greater good. Because she's even trying to justify, like, right, later on, like, we might be wiping out, like, a whole bunch of communities in the process, but taking out the bad people will be saving lives in the long run, and justify the means type of thing. So, but luckily for the Bat team, Alice rolls up and she's like, "Cool, like I'm gonna let you know about Mary's circumstances, and we're gonna have to work together to try and stop her now that both Ivies are out there together." And so it's like they have to go get Renee, which Renee is immediately, I guess, well, because Pam was dead set on the, like she had to get her final mission done, even though Renee was like, "Oh, I got the plane tickets and stuff like that." So it's like, so I guess she was naive enough to think like, "Oh, like Pam's not actually going to go do anything crazy," because later on she's like, "Oh, that's what you're doing. I didn't really." So it's like, I don't know why you so surprised by that, considering she made it perfectly clear that she wasn't going to leave Gotham until that was done. Like, she brought that up last episode, but I guess after Mary and everything, she was hoping like, oh, we can just leave. Or was she actually going to be? Well, she helped stop it in the end, so that's why I'm like, she couldn't be co-signing it. I mean, problem is, like, you kind of co-sign everything Pam did, just, I mean, obviously you love her, but it's also like, right, that can only go so far. You can only just co-sign only so much. I mean, this is why you try to stop her in the first place 10 years ago, but lo and behold, regardless, well, this all ties into it, but I do like that she drops her keys, and then the moment she gets up in her car, lo and behold, who's there in the back seat? Ryan. But I love that she's not the only one. It's also Alice as well. It's like very Bat person-like, just to be I'm back here. Obviously, they're trying to get Renee to help, but obviously it's like, no, I already betrayed Pam once. I'm not going to do it again. And so Sophie shows up, but I love how Orion, like, because you see her kind of caught off guard every once in a while, but just to see her just kind of awkward and just be like, oh, hey, Luke didn't tell me he was calling, and Luke's like, I didn't know I needed to. And then even later on, Sophie's like, wait, she didn't tell you? And he was like, tell me what? She's like, it doesn't matter. Well, obviously it matters even more now that you're talking about it doesn't matter. It's like all kind of kept out of the loop of everything that's going on. So that's interesting, because obviously he was there between those awkward arguments and shouting matches between the two of them last episode in the cabin, so obviously he doesn't know about the interesting developments that have happened since. I do love that Sophie's trying to get the information out of her, even to the point that Alice is kind of helping her out and stuff like that, kind of almost being like her hype man interrogator, and both even Renee and Sophie had to be like, seriously? She's like, what? Come on, 72 hours of this, and like, or whatever. She'll like, because she hasn't really slept much herself, considering everything, because she's been trying to find Mary, so she knew like she had to turn to the Bat team because it was the only way she's going to be able to find Mary in time. But obviously, Mary ended up giving more of herself over to Pam and ended up passing out and nearly killing her in the process. Luckily, they found her. The fact is, they announced like, oh, this is Jacob Kane's daughter, and she's dressed like Poison Ivy. Like, they didn't talk about that, but I'm like, it's going to be, once again, like, how much of this is going to extend past this. Like, I don't think Mary's going to get away from it scot-free, not just on a personal level, just like her own conscience eating away at her, but I think on a public level too, because that guy, she made sure to be like, oh, I'm Dr. Hamilton. It's like, if he isn't dead, that's going to be a future issue she's going to have to deal with. I guess the argument could be like, oh, that wasn't her, that was Poison Ivy, she was there, right? I was being controlled. Maybe that would be the justification, like how you skate around that. It still leaves them open to vulnerabilities in the grand scheme of things. But I love that obviously Alice is behind the wheels again, and she's like, no, I got this. And it's like, she's shifting, and she's like, no, it's an automatic. And she's like, I knew that. I was just, like shaking the rust off or whatever. I'm like, why would you try? I guess she was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere until you let me get behind the wheel. I got this, like, don't worry about it. And pretty speed demonish on the road in a Bat car. She even made this reference about, like, getting Renee to sing like a canary. Like, I didn't know that Rachel, the actress who plays Alice, I didn't know she was in Birds of Prey. I've seen, my only experience with Birds of Prey was, like, the tiny cameo scenes in Crisis on Infinite Nerves. So I didn't know, and I want to say she might have been Black Canaries. I don't know if that was like a wink and nod to that. I think she might have been Black Canary. I don't remember what role I want to say that was that, but regardless. Even if she wasn't, it's just kind of nice. I don't know. I think that's interesting. By associating, because I think even if she wasn't Black Canary in that, like, I know Black Canary was a part of that squad. But once again, tangents and all that. Obviously, a lot of like stuff comes up between them. These enemies kind of. It is the complicated thing that despite Ryan having every reason to hate Alice, there is still enough humanity in her that, like, Ryan finds herself talking to her sometimes, like, not being open, but they have very distinct conversations that, I don't know, like, they have this love-hate relationship. You know, a lot of hate on Ryan's part because it's like, right, you and your Wonderland gang are responsible for my mom's death, you know, so. Obviously, they're listening in about the whole Sophie and Renee conversation they're having about, like, oh, like, yeah, while we were in bed, like, the conversations we talked about everything, and obviously Renee kind of drops the fact is that, like, oh yeah, you spent the entire time complaining about Ryan. Like, I don't complain about people like I don't like, so can't do that. Like, right, you like her, which Alice is like, oh my god, she likes you, and you know she likes you back, and it's like, what do you mean like her? Who says anything about liking Sophie? It's like, it's super obvious, but you know, Alice is pointing it out to her, and it's interesting her perspective because she's basically like, right, I get it better than anyone that we're kind of the same baddie. The fact is that when it comes to good things in our lives, we just assume we're going to ruin them. And then Ryan's like, oh, like with you and Mary. And it's like, what happened between you? And she's kind of like, it doesn't matter. Because truth be told it's almost like she kind of felt betrayed by well, they had a different opinion about how to handle this whole Pam thing. But it's also just like, yeah, like, Mary using her powers on her like that probably frustrates her because it's like, right, I'm trying to save your life. I'm trying to do this for you because I care about you because, you know. But I love that when they roll up on the ambulance, it's like, you'll pull over. It's like, wait, is that Batwoman? It's like, no, this lady, this patient, she needs help. And I love the lady in the back. She's like, what's going on? It's like, I think we're getting jumped by Batwoman. And Ryan, like, gets the ambulance to finally stop and they just peel off. I'm like, it's probably going to turn into an issue, but it's also like, right, she didn't hurt anybody, so it's just kind of like, well, Batman won, basically kidnapped this patient from us, so that'll probably be a strike against her in the future, maybe, we'll see. But then Alice picked the worst possible time to drop the bomb of like, yeah, Mary did kill someone, so it's kind of a good thing she's in a coma. Like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, she didn't mean to. She flung someone and accidentally died. But still, you know, the real Mary, she'd ever find out about it, like, you know, she'd have a breakdown about it. But it's like, oh, like her staying this way, so it all works out. And she's like, Alice is like, oh, it feels so good to get off my chest, which I think is ironic, because that guy kind of got stabbed through, it's middle of it, between his stomach and his chest, but still. But it's also like, yeah, this is the wrong time. She didn't lean into it, but my immediate thought was, oh, you want her to stay this way anyway, because if she ever goes back to being old Mary Hamilton, then, like, you'll lose the only other sister you have around right now. Like, you've got a friend and a sister. Like, you have someone you can bond with and open up with, so you wouldn't want her to turn back. But it's like, right, this is the only way to actually save Mary's life, so... But when Mary comes to, she's like, yeah, like, I'm not going to be here. Like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You guys just assume, like, just because this and that. You assume the worst of her. Like, oh, I'm supposed to believe you that she doesn't care about me. Of course, you'd have that perspective. And then finding out it was Alice who sold her out and told them about Pam. And then she's like, right. And she's like, you're right. I am the crazy one. Someone who's playing Get Up and stuck in a kid's fairy tale, someone dressing like a bat. It's like, and Luke was like, all right, you made your point. She's like, have I? Don't even get me started on your daddy issues. And also unemployed cop over here. And I love Sophie being like, I didn't say anything. Like, why are you burning me? I didn't say anything to you yet, but it's like, you're here. This little clique of friends. It's just like, if you were really my friends, if you really cared about me, you would listen to me when I told you to leave me alone, that I'm better this way. You allow me just to be me. But it's like, Ryan drops the truth bomb on her. You killed someone. She's like, I would know if I killed someone. And she turns to Alice. Alice kind of gives her the nod, like, no, you did. And it's like, yeah, like, help us stop all this, because she's the only one that could get close enough to Pam without her suspecting anything, because obviously Renee can't in that regard, at least in the fashion that they need her to. Which is so sad, because we do see, like, Pamela destroying a dam, even to the point she ends up killing a guy. It's like, oh, he was trying to stop me. It's like, that's a lie. The guy wasn't even trying to stop you. He was like, ma'am, you need to get out of here. It's dangerous. He was warning you, and before he could even say anything, he was like, oh, and then just like, you stabbed him through the chest. It was like, yeah, that guy sure was trying to stop you, wasn't it? It's like, yeah, just an innocent poor guy just doing his job. But for her, it's like, yeah, who cares? Sacrifices have to be made. It's all for the greater good type of thing. If you're trying to stop me, that makes you evil. So. But basically, the formula that blocker that Renee had been dosing herself with little by little, which I love. That's like, yeah, just in case I ever met with Pam again. And then Alice is like, oh, and then like everyone kind of looks at her and she's like, what? I can't be sentimental. But they give it to Mary, and she decides to basically let Pam suck the rest of the spoiling out of her. That way she ends up ingesting all the blockers, and it'll put her in a weakened state. But it's like, yeah, but how do we stop her from basically draining Mary dry? Because Mary could die in the process. It's also the only way to make sure they can get Mary back, because they want to they got to make sure that Pamela ends up absorbing everything from her, well, without killing her. But for Mary, it's like, no, this needs to happen. This is the only way I can because I think a motivation for it is the aspect of, right, I did kill that guy, like I gotta do some good to make up for the bad, because at the end of the day, Pam's going to kill a lot of people. So luckily it was enough to weaken Pam, and her and Batwoman go toe to toe, which I was trying to think in retrospect, like, have I ever seen her go hand to hand? I'm even trying to think, like, it's been a while since I've seen either season. I'm trying to think of, like, Harley Quinn, the animated series. I don't know if she does too much, like, hand to hand combat. Even the Arkham games, I don't remember she's ever really been I feel like you definitely don't see her go close quarters like that. So even at one point, her using the vines, like, she grows the vine and use them like whips, which is very... But it's just like, I never seen her really be the close quarters combat person. So seeing her fight like that, it was actually pretty interesting. Seeing her and Ryan go toe to toe like that. But luckily, she's in a weakened enough state that it's like, cool. Like, while that's like... I think the longer the battle is prolonging, the more it's spreading throughout her body and just like knocking her down a peg or two, like strength-wise. At the same time, Luke suits up again. But for him, it's like, it's, he needs to help out, because while you're dealing with Pam, someone needs to stop the damn situation from happening. And in the process, Luke kind of confronts everything. Obviously, like, him wanting to die, him getting shot, him getting beat up by Marcus. Like, it's like, right, there is no other voice. The only voice is my voice. You got this, Luke. Once again, moments like that, come on, you got this. It makes me think of, like, Homecoming. I'll always go back to that, come on, like, that scared panic moment of Peter asking for help, screaming for help. He's like, you got this, and like, kind of pepping it and like pepping himself up. I thought it just kind of reminded me of that. But whether he'll know, but I think this is Luke finally taking steps in the right direction at the very least. So they ended up taking Pamela down, which obviously she's saying, like, this city needs a fresh start. But Ryan's like, it may not seem it to you, but this city is worth saving, at least to me. So leaves Pamela there. I don't know how Renee was able to swing whatever deal she made. I guess, she probably has a lot of dirt on people that she probably, like, cashed in all her chips. That basically is like, right, Pamela is no longer, like, she's inert right now, so I'm going to take her away, which we find out where that is. They're going to Coriana. So which I'm like, oh, well, the place where plants are worshipped, because it's like, right, we still don't know what that place's situation is like. Well, because the person who would have taken over after Sophia would have been, well, the two people that would have taken over are both dead. When it's Tatiana and Ocean, so, and now that Sophia is gone, it does make you wonder what the status of that place is. And it allows them to just kind of be free. So, obviously, Renee gave her a choice. It's like, right, you can come with me, or you can jump out. That it's like, yeah, that's like 100. Like, I'll die. It's like, yeah, but is that any crazier than anything else you've ever done? It's like, this is a second chance. you know, I made a deal so that you don't have to run anymore. You don't have to live like that, but you have to start living the way like I kind of deem like going forward. So you have to make a choice. And she's like, right, close the door. So obviously Coriana sounds like a you know, fantasy, but it is kind of a paradise for a place like her, for a person like her, considering like, yeah, your obsession with plants and everything and how they're revered there. So not the ending I was expecting, because I was like, is Renee really just going to let her get locked up and put in either Arkham or Blackgate? But it's like, no, they left. So I guess that's Renee's exit. I don't think we'll be seeing her for the rest of the season. Who knows? But that's interesting. Just like, I mean, I didn't expect them to kill Poison Ivy or anything like that, but I didn't expect like this to be where her story ends up taking her. So that's fascinating. But luckily, at the end of it all, Mary is back to her usual self, and so obviously Ryan's like, right, we owe you a huge apology for not being there, but at the end of the day, you are family, and we're going to treat you like the family that you are. Like, we're never going to like sideline you because you are just as valuable member of this team as anyone else. But Mary does say that she remembers everything, and even later on, she's like, she's looking it up on a computer about the hunter she killed, and she's like, no, I don't want to know. But eventually, that guilt's going to get to her, because the sad thing is, he left a family behind. He has like a wife and son. Like, that little boy was hoping someone would find his dad, and obviously, well, we know Alice found the body. We don't know if anyone else. Well, because I wasn't paying attention to the news article, so I don't know if it said he was. I think it might have said he was dead. I don't think it was saying that he was just missing. So I think they did ultimately find his body. I'm sure there was like a search party to be like, yeah, looking for his dad, because I think that was happening at the end of last episode anyway. So I think, yeah, that it just makes sense for it to be like, no, they found his body and everything. But obviously Alice is kind of hoping that Ryan will kind of pull some strings with the mayor, just kind of like how Renee did. But it's like, no. Going forward, you're on your own. Like, we got rid of Poison Ivy, we've gotten rid of Montoya, so like none of that's looming over our head. You have to figure out your own circumstances from here. So she helped out in the end, but it still doesn't change what she's done and who she is. And that's always going to be a thing with Ryan in her mind. It's just like, no, I know who you are, I know what you've done. Like, I'm never going to be fully able to forgive you. We didn't touch on it in this episode, but I'm sure it's going to come up in the future. Now that Mary is Mary again, what's it going to be like between her and Alice? Because Ryan's justification is like, right, you basically sacrificed the Mary you wanted because you realized that you didn't like the fact that you were changing her into be more like you, because there's a lot of self-loathing on Alice's part, whether she tries to pretend like, oh, I'm okay, I'm fine. It's like, no, obviously there's a lot of psychological damage there. We've tackled it time and time again, but it's like, yeah, she doesn't want Mary to go down the path that she did. It's like, right, like me being the murderer, me being who I am, it's too late for me to go back. She didn't want that to be the case for Mary. Because regardless, it's like, yeah, like she enjoyed their time together and she had to give it up, and I doubt the good times aren't going to be able to continue rolling considering what things are now. But aside from all of that, there is the buzzer situation, which Jada's like being like, oh, give me back my son, it's the only way. Like, the sad thing is, like, you're going so hard in it, like going so hard in the paint against Batwoman, not even knowing she's your daughter. To be fair, you've never held your punches against your daughter until fairly recently. You guys have been in a better situation recently, but you still have your issues, you know. So, but basically, Jada was giving her a time limit. Like, yeah, you got till midnight to like give me back my son. If you're going to work on a buzzer, give me my son in the process. Like, yeah, sadly she wasn't able to keep up that time frame, and Jada made her moves, which I'm like, come on, I get it, it's your son. So, but it's also like because I guess it's also like, right, I can't trust a bad person with my son because I don't know what you're going to do in the end. I don't know if you're going to. It's like, yeah, but your son's kind of like a bad guy right now, but it's like, right, like that doesn't matter. It's like, I'm trying to save my son, so no matter what he's done, he's still my son at the end of the day, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect them. It's just kind of like, it's very much like Renee and her love for Pamela, which does spark the conversation between Ryan and Sophie about everything. being like, yeah, like the kiss was supposed to keep me out of my head, but it just kind of put me more in my own head. So, where things kind of go from there. Once again, because of Armageddon, we kind of have some ideas about where their story is going to go, and I think we're more likely to continue down that path, considering not less. I don't think anything. I mean, you never know the ripple effects of knowing the future, but once again, like we as the audience only know that. It's not like Barry knows that and be able to tell everyone the ins and outs of all the dynamics of like what 10 years down in the future is going to look like. Regardless, but Jada, setting fire to everything just for the sake of her family, burns Batwoman by being like, yeah, all this stuff. Yeah, Batman had all these trophies. Batwoman slipped up and now they're out there. Oh, but it's like, yeah, but Batwoman saved with the damn situation. It's like, no, you're missing my point. She's still responsible for everything. Like all those Bat trophies getting in the wrong hands, all these killers, all these deaths are on her hands. So Batwoman, turn yourself in. Jada's not going to be too happy when she finds out, oh, you basically burned your daughter. Again. You screwed her over with the Wayne Enterprise thing. Now you're doing it yet again. Granted, she probably would have been like, why didn't you tell me you were Batwoman? It's like, well, we're not in the best relationship where I tell you, hey, I'm secretly a superhero. So that puts them in that awkward situation, especially because there's backup damage from like the whole situation with the dam and water leaks on Marcus. So he's waking up and he's the person that actually knows her secret, so he's probably going to blab that to the world, especially, and it's coming at the worst time considering everyone knows, well, the city's going to be turning against Batwoman because they're like, oh, you're supposed to be looking out for us, but you're the reason why this is all happening. And if her identity gets put out there, obviously there's good and bad for having your identity out there. It's just like, well, you don't want it to be under the worst circumstances. I think Oliver kind of was on previously kind of in the worst circumstances of like his identity being out there. Obviously it ended up being a very middle ground situation. Kara's story ends off with her telling the world who she is, so that's kind of being more in a positive light. We'll see. Considering the circumstances, I don't think this is going to be so positive. I think it's going to be pretty negative for Ryan, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. It's definitely going to be really interesting, as it seems like we're definitely setting up Marcus to be like the main threat now that all the other stuff has been taken off the board. It's your clown meets bat showdown from this point forward, it seems. But really, that's all I want to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.